Hi everyone, welcome to the Human Skills Lab podcast because human skills aren't soft, they're essential. I'm Heidi Peace, an educator, and I'm so excited to be here with you.
And I'm Kobe Campbell, a school counselor and licensed clinical social worker. We're teaming up to encourage and equip you to build the skills for a better life. Whether you're feeling overwhelmed or just looking for a little motivation, you're in the right place. Although we come from an education background, this podcast is intended for everyone.
In every episode, we'll share practical tips, personal stories, and strategies you can actually use. Plus, we'll answer your questions and maybe even have some fun along the way.
So get comfortable, take a deep breath, and let's figure this out together. We're so glad you're here.
This podcast is for informational purposes only and does not constitute professional advice. Also, our views are our own and do not reflect the school district for which we work. Thanks so much for joining us today.
So we start every episode with a little bit of an accountability piece. And our last accountability piece was on, remind me.
Entitlement.
Entitlement, sorry. Lots of grace around here at the Human Skills Lab podcast. Life is busy. So Heidi, how did you do with your accountability for the entitlement piece?
So my goal was to listen to the emotions and really truly understand the request that I was being asked before deciding, like listening to the whole thing and then asking 3 questions if it's not clear. Now, in general, I ask too many questions. That's part of my teacher training, getting people to uncover their own things. But so I am really trying to limit myself to 3 questions and not spam, not go overboard. So, and then part of that is after I've listened, I'm able to empathize better. So, but I really think slowing down has helped. I really haven't had too many, I would say, relationship injuring moments where I have gone overboard and either asked too many questions or jumped to a conclusion. So I've really been slowing it down and trying to listen and then finding out what their pain points are and then sharing what my pain points are. So I would say overall it's been very helpful.
Good. So like a give and take, right? Not just jumping to a decision without really understanding the full request and then evaluating your own resources and empathizing with what they need as well.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
And what about yours? What was your goal for this week?
So sort of assessing my emotional resources, asking questions to determine the intensity of the need. Like, how much need is there? Is this something that is really super important to that person? Especially when I look at these requests, I consider like mental health. Is it really important to the mental health of the person who's asking it? Do I have the resources to grant the request? And then setting boundaries if those things don't line up. And I would say that it went pretty well. We're still dealing with a move and a lot of boxes everywhere and things that need to be set up and working full time and, so I think that it went pretty well this week, sort of assessing the need and setting the boundaries, because there are some nights when I'm falling asleep at 7:30, I'm like, can barely keep my eyes open. And, so yes, it has been successful for me to say, I need to get some rest. And, to be able to preserve my energy during the day too, if I know I'm going to, I want to spend time with my family and I want to be emotionally and physically available for them. So I'd say it's been pretty successful for me this week.
Great. And hopefully we're modeling for our own children and families that there's an appropriate amount of entitlement. There's that sense of I matter and my needs matter too.
Yeah.
But also not to overstep that and kind of tread on others. So,
Yeah.
thanks for sharing.
Yeah, you
Okay.
too.
So, our main topic today, it's a doozy,
It's another fun one, right?
is complaining.
Mm,
Why we do it and how to respond in a better way. Maybe
mm.
even a little wisdom.
Wisdom
So,
and complaining going together. I don't know.
so
This will be
why do
interesting.
we complain, Kobe? Why do we feel like we should complain? And
Well,
maybe we should even start with what is complaining?
complaining, that's an interesting question. I mean, it can take a lot of forms, and I will say it's normal, right? Our brains are wired for negativity. They're also wired for storytelling. And there's a lot that we get out of complaining,
Yeah.
um, positive and negative. So I think that wiring for negativity and longing for connection and that wiring for storytelling sometimes leads us to complain. I think it can be a productive practice, experience, whatever, or a destructive one. And maybe there's some middle ground there too. But it is normal. And I think anytime we're dealing with a negative situation or things didn't go as we thought they would, it's pretty normal and natural to want to complain. So, as to what purpose it serves, there's lots of different, I mean, we'll explore that a little bit more today. But when you combine those two wirings of for negativity and for storytelling, it just gets complicated and it's nuanced. So I think when we're talking about complaining and thinking, oh, I shouldn't complain, I think it's a little more complicated than that. And I think it's a little more nuanced than that. And we will get into that a little bit more. But I think it's important to note that complaining is not a moral failure. It's not something that, you need to feel bad about. But it is something to explore
Hmm.
and to, I don't know if I want to
Well,
say analyze, but
I
to
was gonna
look,
say like become more aware of.
yeah, to raise your
Broaden
awareness,
your own awareness.
your purposes behind it
Hmm.
and what you're getting out of it or not getting out of it, positive, negative. Like, is it something that's really serving you, or is it something that's causing even more distress and more pain?
I love that framing of it because there are some times when, we have to understand that how we're wired matters,
Hmm.
and that it's okay, and that if we kind of beat ourselves down and get into judgment about it, that's not really going to help because that's going to lead us into shame.
Hmm.
Um, but if we can come to awareness about it, we're more likely to stay out of some of those
Yeah.
traps, I'll call
Yep.
them, or patterns. Patterns.
Yeah, patterns. So let's talk a little bit about the patterns about, of why we complain. The one that jumps out first to me is cheap connection, right? If we complain, especially talking about other people, complaining about other people, or complaining about situations, like negative situations that you're like both going through, it's cheap connection. It's connection without the work of really knowing
Hmm.
somebody, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Um,
I
we're
do.
both suffering, so we must be close, sort of a thing, right? Your closeness through suffering, which I, I would love to choose a different way. I'm not
Right.
going to say though that I haven't engaged in that either. I mean, I think that it's normal and human to bond through that shared frustration, you know. Is it the healthiest and the best? That's for you to decide, and that self-awareness piece comes up, um, throughout all of these ones that we're going to talk about. My gut is that it's not terribly healthy, but there is some sort of support to be found in that connection. There is a line past which, however, if the complaining continues, it can get very toxic
Hmm.
and the support is negated, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and it's kind of like a read the room situation. It's like,
Yeah.
are you making the room a place where it's not comfortable to be?
Hmm. And
So,
are you comfortable there anymore? Or is this
right.
become a habit, a pattern? If a whole friendship is, based on, or the majority of a friendship is based on this cheap connection, it may not be real and might be something to look at,
And I
you know.
think there's something deeper too in terms of our current situation that we have just this exponentially high amount of loneliness
Yeah.
in our world. And I think if we're not careful, we can use that cheap connection to try and feel better and fill
Hmm.
some of those gaps. But really, that's not the valuable connection.
Yeah.
We want to maybe engage slightly with that, but not because you don't really want to shut down other people's feelings. It's kind of a tricky thing to do.
No, but I think a red flag is if you attempt to take it into a more positive, connected place, and either the other person responds by bringing it back to the negative, cheap connection, um, or you do. It can't get to that more positive place. I would say that's probably a red flag. If there's some capability of connecting about more positive things, about other parts of life that bring joy or, positivity, then that's a part of the connection. But if that's the whole connection, it can get really toxic. So just something to think about.
Yeah, great distinction. It's like almost like analyzing how much and how often, and
And how you're feeling. How does that make
yeah,
you feel? Does it help you or hinder you
yeah,
in getting on with life? If you can, and we'll talk a little bit about this a little bit later, if you can vent and move on and that makes you feel better and it kind of offloads for you to be able to continue in a, stronger way, then great. But if it just feels like habit and it drags you down, then maybe that's a pattern to look at.
yeah. Another reason why we complain is because we want to feel justified in our decision,
Mhm.
or we want to feel like we made the right decision. Because life is complicated. It's tons of gray areas, and there's tons of variables, and you only understand it from your point of view. So some people genuinely kind of bring up these complaining type things as a way to make sure that they were right or that they did the right thing, or sometimes they're trying to figure it out,
Yeah.
like from multiple points of view.
And I think there's a difference between trying to figure it out and trying to have confidence or, gain support for something that you've done. Nobody, maybe I'm wrong here, but I'm just going to go out on a limb and say nobody's going to be able to give you what you need to feel comfortable in your decision if you are not comfortable in your decision. Maybe they will, maybe some reassurance that that was okay. But if you're having doubt, that's an inner thing to deal with. That's something
Yeah.
that you have to kind of explore. Like, why am I feeling uncomfortable about this? Is there some part of this that I'm not sure I did the right thing? Maybe that wasn't. I, that's something you're going to have to come to terms with yourself. Yeah, I guess it could be helpful to get reassurance, um, but ultimately that's going to be a you thing, right? But that is one reason why we do complain, to get that justification and to feel um, okay about what it is that we have decided to do or not decided to do.
Yeah, and I think you're wise to go internal on that, and also to think about the patterns that you were raised with. Because if you
Hmm.
were raised in a place where your needs really didn't matter, maybe you're putting this out there just to say, do I matter here?
Hmm.
And really that should come from inside. Like, I do matter.
Yeah.
I matter, and I have a healthy sense of entitlement.
Mhm. I mean, you see why this is so complicated. There are
Yeah.
so many
Yes.
uh, good things and negative things that can come from something that is generally universally thought of as negative, right? Complaining.
Right.
We I talked a little bit about like the venting part. That's another reason why we complain, to empty the cup, if that makes sense, to offload the negativity, the negative feelings, as a catharsis, and then to move on, to be able to continue to deal with a difficult situation, to continue to be in an environment or a situation that is frustrating. And again, that's a tricky one. You have to really have that self awareness. Is this serving me? Is it doing what I want it to do, which is offload, and then I can go do the things I need to do? Or is it stirring up more? And if it's stirring up more, take a look at that pattern, maybe try something different, maybe a mindfulness practice. I mean, sometimes you kind of have to really check in about, would I be better served by complaining about this, by venting, or going on a mindful awareness walk, or taking some breaths, or doing a meditation, or doing some physical exercise to get rid of that feeling that I've got, or shrink the feeling that I have, because we don't want to get rid of our feelings. They tell us stuff, but we don't want to allow them to take over so that we're having trouble doing what we need and want to do.
So I guess if complaining is the pattern and that's how you're venting to function, maybe it's time to look at some other tools for the toolbox.
If that's the only tool that you have is
Right.
venting, yeah, absolutely. I mean, if it's a part of a larger toolbox where you are venting sometimes, but then you go for a run other times, or you meditate, I mean, it depends on your own particular pattern. It's nice
Hmm.
to have a wide variety of tools so that you're not, especially when it comes to complaining and venting. I think definitely having more tools is better. So.
Hey, and what about complaining as humble bragging?
Yeah. So
Oh, I'm
sometimes,
so busy.
right, I think it has become sort of a badge of honor in our society to be who is the busiest. This is
Mhm.
not the busy Olympics. This is not like I,
There's no trophies being handed out.
there's no trophies for being the busiest or the most stressed out, and I think we can all get looped into this sort of comparison. I mean, really, that's what it boils down to, is comparison, to what everybody else is doing, and feeling good that we're doing enough or the most. Um, and two different ways this can work, because we can find ourselves doing this, and that's something to take a look at. And then we can also like get triggered by other people who are doing it because we don't feel enough, right? All of the things that they're doing. Well, I bought the store-bought cookies for the thing, and she made all of the,
Uh-huh.
5 different varieties, and how come I can't do that?
With hand done frosting. Exactly.
Let it go. Let it go. Values.
So
I
yeah,
mean,
so
let's
your
bring it back to our values,
capability, yeah,
right?
so capability is can be wrapped up, your kind of your self-worth can be wrapped up in that. Whether or it can be kind of attacked when somebody else does it. Is that what you're saying? So
Yeah,
both of
just
those things.
well, we attack ourselves by comparing ourselves to others, right? We go
Right.
like, well, how come, but I should be doing, no, you shouldn't. No, you shouldn't. Like, especially if we're talking about living our values. If it is not one of your values to invest all of your time in baking the things, then no. Like, you're going to put your energy and effort where it does make sense. Maybe what you can do is to show up for all of the events, with or without the baked or store bought, I mean, just to be there.
Right.
That's the value. I am going to be present consistently for my kid. And no, I will not have baked 5 varieties of cookies, but I will consistently be there because that's what I can do. That is my value that I'm living.
All right. And then what about processing? Because I feel like part of this is really healthy
Hmm.
and it can go over the edge though. So when processing, when you're trying to make a decision,
Hmm.
and you want to, obviously we know that it's best to do that inner work. Um, Look inside, look at how you're feeling, and then, but also sometimes you have wise friends that might be able to give you some good advice or help you shine your own light on yourself, if that makes sense.
Yeah, when I think of complaining versus processing, I think complaining can be part of processing. I think of processing as more balanced. That's just in my own mind. Complaining is clearly geared toward the negative, and so that can be a part of exploring in processing. And I haven't done any research on this, so I'll just set that up right now. This is just, in my mind, processing is more balanced and you're looking at both sides. It's more of a pros and cons. And so complaining can be part of the negative. But then when you're complaining and exploring the negative, how much is it really impacting you? I think that can be part of the processing and decision making is if in your complaining you are realizing this is really impacting me significantly in a negative way, that might weight your pros and cons a little bit. If your commute is taking you so long that you're really missing out on a lot of things, or your work schedule or something, and so it's getting in the way of you living your values with your family and your kids, and it's really impacting you negatively, you might complain about that. And in that process, realize that it's really negatively impacting you and decide to make a change, that I need to find a job that works remotely or that is closer to home, or cut back my work hours, or restructure some things financially so I'm not always working. If you have the capability to do that, and that can be a healthy part of complaining, or another reason why we do.
So I guess healthy processing will look like giving you a more accurate view of your situation and helping you to take action.
I think it can. I'm going to caution complaining usually has a pretty significant negative emotional overlay. So I think, that needs to be taken into consideration, that negative emotional overlay. And if that stays consistent over time, then that's more indicative to me of a significant negative impact. If you kind of pop in and out of, oh man, I'm so frustrated with this, and then other days it's okay, then that leads to a more balanced. Maybe it's not as significant an impact. Maybe I may need to make a change. Maybe I don't. But if you're consistently feeling just super overwhelmed and frustrated, and as a part of processing to make a decision that's consistent over time, in my mind that can indicate that there's maybe more of a negative impact. And so yeah, more accurate view, but also considering the emotions involved.
And so each of these different complaints are different emotional needs being presented.
Yeah.
And it's up to us to kind of go inside and look and see what do I really need emotionally, and am I making an environment that is too negative? Because life is complicated.
Mm-hmm.
And
And nobody is saying that you shouldn't complain, because it serves emotional purposes, it serves needs. It's just, again, it's like, your emotions, you don't want to unpack your suitcase and live there, because that, that can be really tricky in being able to do what it is that you want and need to do in life if you're always living in that negative soup. So it's complicated. The complaining serves different emotional needs, and it can be nuanced, and it's personal. And taking a look at your patterns and brings us to the next thing, taking a look at your triggers, right? Because when we are complaining about something, when we're feeling negative feelings about something, likely it's having to do with our triggers, the things that upset us. And triggers usually come from experiences we've had, beliefs and thoughts and perceptions that we've created through these experiences. So we want to take a look at our triggers too, and those underlying beliefs, and see when we're complaining, that can really lead us to, oh, well, what is this thing, this trigger that I'm dealing with, and how can I deal with it in a more productive way? If I take care of the trigger, can I take care of the complaint? If I do that inner work on sort of decreasing the intensity of the trigger, or decreasing the amount of triggers that I have, can that take care of the complaining?
And this is showing us one of our underlying beliefs. What can we, it's almost like one of the ways out of complaining is looking inside and seeing, what do we believe? And then examining that,
Yeah.
instead of just saying, oh, I'm just not going to complain today.
Yeah, good luck with that one. You know, so, maybe the belief is they should be doing this or they shouldn't be doing this. And, we come back to our circle of control. Maybe they should. Can we influence them to do it? Sure. Can we force them to do it? It's other people are not in our circle of control. We are. Our
Right.
thoughts, feelings, beliefs. So if we take a look at our the beliefs that we have, is there a more functional belief that we can develop in place of that? Is there a less negative, more neutral, more helpful thought that we can replace those thoughts that are causing us trouble or exacerbating our triggers? Um, so when we look at our beliefs, when we look at the situation, we can look at it negatively. We know our brains are wired to do that, or we can see it as, um, and I even hesitate to say this because I
Hmm.
think this can be really difficult to. I feel the eye rolls when I say this. Let's just say it that way. Um, we can look at this as suffering, or we can look at this as an opportunity to grow.
Right.
Right? Don't shoot the messenger. I It's how much do you want to suffer? And I personally don't. And there are times when I will
Hmm.
suffer because I will stay in those thoughts and patterns. And then you get sick of yourself. And it's like, okay, I don't, how else can I think about this? Because
Right.
this pattern right here is not serving me anymore. It's serving to give me pain, and I don't want that. So, how can you break out of that? By reaching for a different feeling thought, looking at the belief and seeing, is this, like examining it, is this true?
Mm.
And I'm going to refer again to Byron Katie's work for this. It's Loving What Is. Um, she goes through a whole process of questions to ask yourself about if something's true. And it can feel very true to us, and maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Likely it's not true. It's a belief that we've developed that can be shifted and changed.
And one of the things I do for myself is ask myself, do I want to do this for the next 20 years? And
Okay.
what I mean by that is, like, if I just keep repeating this and repeating this pattern over and over
Mhm.
again, is that the right pattern? Is that the right life? Is that
Is that
serving
going to serve
myself?
me and make me happy?
Yes. Or is it going to make me suffer?
Yeah.
It's when I'm in the classroom, I have a different thought. Like, if I'm saying yes or letting this boundary go, now I have all of these children that are going to
Hmm.
repeat that.
Yeah.
So I need to really be careful about what I am, what patterns that I establish,
Yeah.
because they will have lasting consequences and if they are not right. So I have to really be intentional about which patterns that I want to move forward with me.
Yes. And if you find yourself in a dysfunctional pattern or one that's not serving you, grace. Grace all over the place because we have all been there. Some of us are currently there. And right? I
Really,
mean,
just some of us?
okay, so all of us. Um, no, I mean, I think so much grace because it's so easy to fall into patterns that feel good in the moment, particularly around complaining. Um, and, but then afterwards, you either have a vulnerability hangover, that's a Brene Brown
Hmm.
concept as well, thinking, oh God, did I really say that? Or you are in a pattern that just keeps you in misery and suffering and doesn't offer an opportunity to take action and make even tiny changes that will help the situation be better for you. And I think that can be another sort of hallmark of is this productive or is this not? Is is it allowing you to come to is it allowing you to come to a place where you can make an action plan? Right? And if that action plan is just I dump every once in a while and I feel better enough to move on, great. But if that action plan is this is really bothering me and here's one small step I can take and I'm going to build on that, then that's a more productive hallmark of a more productive type of complaining in my book.
So what are our strategies and healthy responses? Like what we've been self-aware. We are growing in that department. We're trying to be intentional. Now, what can we do? I mean, I think the only thing we really can do is start with ourselves. We can
Yeah.
know what is within our circle of control and
Mhm.
what is outside of it. And I think that's the only real power we have,
Yeah.
is controlling the things that we can control.
Yeah, and I'll put a link in the show description to an example of a circle of control. The short version is that the things that are in our circle of control all have to do with us, and the things that are outside of our circle of control all have to do with everybody else and events or that are happening around us. So we can influence, but we can't necessarily control. And I think just starting with that concept, looking at what can I control in this situation? Because I don't know about you, but when I look at a whole situation and there's so much that I can't control, that can get very overwhelming and sometimes hopeless. And so if you look at what you can control, that builds empowerment and hope and can help you to keep going instead of, you know, getting stuck in the pit, so to speak.
Okay, and now what happens if we do have a really hard thing happen?
Hmm.
We have had a big struggle, and now is the time that's ripe for learning.
I think that's it. It's right for learning. And I think we heard this a lot more immediately post pandemic is post traumatic growth versus, that intensive trauma sort of response. So post traumatic growth, hard events can define you or refine you. And we hope that it refines us. What can we learn from these difficult situations? And maybe they're ongoing difficult situations. And I will say, again, I will always give this disclaimer. If you are going through a trauma, please get some professional help to get through it. I think that if you're finding that your responses to things are getting in the way of your daily functioning, that's absolutely a healthy thing to do is to seek professional help. Even if they're not, and you're just feeling that extra emotional burden, it's okay to get professional help.
Yeah.
That's what they're there for.
And
Um,
our feelings, when they do become evident,
mhm,
sometimes we can compare with others.
mhm.
And we want the whole purpose of our emotions are to help us understand more about ourselves,
Hmm.
not to make us feel worse.
Hmm.
not to not to put us in a hierarchy.
Yeah.
So suffering isn't a competition, and our suffering is worthy of our own care,
Hmm.
and sometimes getting outside support if we need it. And we want to avoid making ourselves feel worse
Hmm.
if that doesn't help. Like, oh, my problem is smaller than this person's problem,
Or bigger. I think
or
it's not the,
bigger.
I
Yeah,
forget where I picked up this phrase, but I love it. The hardship Olympics. This is not the hardship Olympics. So our suffering is worthy of care and so is somebody else's.
right.
So we don't need to minimize our suffering, but we also don't need to think we're the only person who's ever gone through suffering or is going through this particular issue. I think right sizing,
Hmm.
our suffering, and not comparing ourselves to others in terms of our suffering, taking the care that we need. We are worth caring for our own suffering. And it's also good to keep an eye on the fact that we are not the only people suffering, especially in this day and age. So many are suffering for so many reasons. That doesn't mean that your first world problem, right?
Hmm.
Your frustration isn't worth care, you
And
know?
the one thing I'm thinking of is size of problem.
Yes.
I think one way to kind of help yourself is to, look at at your problem and decide like what size of problem is this actually?
Yeah.
And then you can feel those negative feelings and go, okay, this doesn't feel good, but it is a smaller problem. This will go away in 5 years.
And
It's not enduring.
yeah, it helps us to right size our reaction to the problem too, and to regulate ourselves within that process because, this is not, as I said to one of my students the other day, this isn't a fire truck problem, is it? Like, this isn't a large problem. We don't need the fire department to come, is it? Do we? So, when we're finding ourselves having outsized reactions to problems that really can be solved, they're solvable, they're inconvenient, they're frustrating. Um, that just means we need to grab a strategy. If they're ongoing frustration, it might be a larger problem. And if they're still solvable, take a deep breath, let's make a plan, um, and get to solving, in whatever small way that we can. If we're having outsized reactions, it does help to think about how big is this problem really, and if I didn't have this feeling right now, could I have a better handle on how to solve it? Or if I shrink this feeling. So
Okay, now let's not take it personally.
let's not take it personally.
This one is, I think, the hardest, especially if somebody in your family is
Hmm.
complaining, because if it's your child or your significant other or a parent, like these are all people that are deeply connected to you,
Yeah.
and our lives are integrated.
Yeah.
So if there's a complaint, it feels like it is more personal than maybe a car that honks at you on the street.
Yeah.
Like the relationship does make it feel
Yeah.
more personal. But one of the things we can do is we can separate that out and go, okay, they're having some struggle of some kind, some suffering. But is that directly our problem, or can we just be a listener here? Like,
Yeah.
how do we keep the emotions from seeping in at us, from
Yeah.
getting attached?
Yeah, I think that often when people complain, particularly if it's about something that we've done or not done, that can feel very personal. And I keep coming back to they're operating out of the lenses that they see things through based on their experiences, etc. We are human. We should be allowed to make mistakes. And maybe it just means not taking it personally, just means being okay with, yes, I messed up this time. I'm going to apologize and do what I can to make it right without feeling excessive guilt. If that person's, persistence, shall we say, in, sticking on this one issue, continues, then, I mean, that's something we need to let go of. If you have done everything that you can to, or even just attempted to make it right, that's what you can do. We're human. We make mistakes. So maybe sometimes it is personally we're irritated by something that we did or we let them down in some way. Okay, that happens. Like, we are human. And hopefully it doesn't, hopefully it's not a relationship ruiner.
Right.
Because oftentimes we will make small mistakes. And good relationships you should feel free to admit and repair. And if that repair isn't accepted, then, I mean, you've done what you can do. The other part of it is maybe they're not complaining about something that we have done, but they're just complaining. We can set a boundary on that internally. Um, internally say, okay, I've got about 2 or 3 minutes and then I'm going to be maxed out. So listen and empathize, restate, validate, and then, oh, I'm so sorry. I need to go. Maybe we can pick this up another time if you feel that's appropriate. I think often if you set that boundary, maybe we can pick this up another time. That frustration point will have passed and that other time will never come. But you're at least offering. If you feel that's what you want to do, don't offer unless you want, like you're willing to come back around to this issue. Because sometimes that will happen. They'll be like, oh yeah, great, let's go get coffee and I'm going to complain your ear off. So if you're ready to do that, then. But then another thing that you can do kind of tips into our next topic of how to unloop somebody who's spiraling, is ask them what they need. Maybe you're able to give that that ear for a few minutes. Maybe you do have the bandwidth for that, but you can't join them in the, action planning, or you can't join them too far in that. But you do have the bandwidth for listening, you know. I think another strategy for complaining is a gratitude practice. So that's not a bypass for, you're not slapping a smile on a difficult situation. You're just looking for the good, right?
You're not
Just,
right
yeah,
sizing.
everything's fine. No, it's not fine. Acknowledge that, but then also look for the good. What do you want to grow? Right? I tell the kids all the time, like, you've got negative thoughts, you've got positive thoughts, or more helpful thoughts, I like to call them, because this is, not everything is positive. Sometimes we just need to reach for a more helpful thought. So if you focus on the negative, it's like a plant. If you water it and give it sunshine, it's going to grow.
Right.
So if you water and give sunshine to the negative, that's going to grow. If you water and give sunshine to the positive, no matter how small in your life, that's going to grow. It's not that you don't acknowledge that the negative exists, but that you choose to intentionally look for
And
anything.
cultivate. Right.
Yeah, and cultivate appreciation for the good. That's not negating the negative. It's not ignoring the negative. It's growing the more positive or more helpful.
And I think that can help with right sizing the problem too. Because if you are seeing more of those positive things, it can help the negative to stay more in its box.
Yeah, right. And then I think the last one that we want to talk about today is the one that we've come back to, and we've even referenced earlier in the podcast, is how much do I want to suffer? And we don't always have a choice about pain, but we can have a choice about suffering. And our mindset and our self-care strategies, and I hate that phrase, but I will use it anyway because it's convenient. Our self-care strategies, what are we going to do to take care of ourselves in the midst of this pain, can alleviate suffering. Connection can alleviate suffering, whether or not it's a complaining connection, right? Seeking people out, seeking the good in our lives, even through difficult situations, can alleviate our suffering. So, and that can help sort of even things out for us.
Okay, so I think you've already given us some good strategies on how to unloop somebody who is spiraling. You can set a firm boundary, like I can listen for 2 to 3 minutes, or we can pick this up later if that is okay with you. What else can we do to unloop somebody?
So I've done this
several. Yeah, take us through very direct steps.
So I've done this several times in the last couple of weeks with kids who were dysregulated, and I think it works with adults too. Within 2 minutes, they were from way up here, where are my hands? Way up here, to able to move on, and that's validate the emotional experience. It can look like, you really didn't like it when they did that. Yeah, I didn't. And, next statement, they shouldn't have done that. You feel like they really should not have done that. I mean, it's just validating. You're really frustrated by the fact that they did that. And it can deflate the balloon, Even being in this field for years and knowing how well this works, I was like amazed at how well it worked the past couple of weeks. It's just consistently a winner,
Also training them to kind of trust how they feel.
Yeah.
And that is really important because you probably won't need to complain as much too if you trust in your judgment about how you feel and what is okay with you and what is past your boundary.
Yeah.
Like you're helping them to understand themselves and their boundaries, and that you're validating that they can make that decision for themselves.
Yeah.
So I think you're helping on multiple levels there.
And we've already referenced the next one, which is, do you want me to listen, help problem solve, or just be with you in it? And I mean, again, you have to kind of look at your own bandwidth with this, but ask them what they need, because sometimes when we try to fix it, that keeps the spiral going.
Because that's not really they're ready
That's
for.
yeah, they need some they maybe they need to vent and you're trying to create an action plan and they don't feel heard and understood, so that makes it worse,
Right.
right? Once they feel heard and understood, they may be ready for an action plan. But before then, they might just need you to listen. Um,
So you don't have to jump into their suffering to be supportive.
no, you
You
don't.
can be out of the mud.
Yes, and let's talk about no mud, no lotus, right?
Mm.
So that goes back to the post-traumatic growth and that idea that we can be defined or refined by the things that happen to us. When we're in the mud, thinking about the fact that there is something, that's where the seed is, right?
Hmm.
And there is something good that can come out of it, right? You don't have to get in the mud with them, in order to help or to empathize, right?
Right. You can be supportive
Hmm.
without getting your shoes dirty.
Right, jumping into their misery, right?
And I think just having that person to hold space and to be
Mhm.
like, so you're not alone, is
Yeah,
really a bit undervalued. Because sometimes that's, I mean, if we do have this loneliness problem in our country, like maybe even the world, like just making somebody not feel alone,
yeah,
that is a gift.
yeah.
And you don't
Sometimes
have to
it's hard to
take
do because,
on, you don't have to take on their problems to do that.
yeah, and I think sometimes that's hard for us to do when we're so mired in our own, to think of extending ourselves to another person can be difficult to do. But one thing that I do know and research bears out is that helping somebody else helps us,
Mm.
you
Yeah.
know? Um,
We
so,
rise, we rise when we lift others.
exactly.
Yeah.
So, we're thinking about protecting our peace in this situation where we're complaining or where somebody else is complaining. I think more where somebody else is complaining. And there are a few complaining patterns. The daily venter. So, so when we are encountering a daily venter, or if we're realizing we are a daily venter, right? Um, that is a pattern just needs to offload on a relatively regular basis. We have the doom storyteller who just likes to engage around all of the details and the negativity, and I don't know if they're particularly interested in a solution. It just feels good to get out the doom and gloom.
Hmm.
Maybe related to the daily venter. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like the storyteller wants to draw in an audience.
Oh, and maybe some
Yeah.
support.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
And then we
agree.
have the injustice collector
Mm-hmm.
and the spiraler.
Mm-hmm.
Those are, the injustice collector wants to see all of these things that are unfair, unjust, not right, and then maybe rally support or at least express that those things are not okay.
Yeah.
And the spiraler is the one that can make everything bigger than it is.
Yeah. Yeah. And get stuck. So, if you are encountering this, things that you can do to protect your peace, protect your energy, check in with your own internal state first before engaging. Sometimes you have no choice, they find you. Sometimes, and I'm no shade. I have been probably each one of these at
Hmm.
some point over
Yep.
the course of my life and career or the week, right? And so this part is just how to protect yourself. It doesn't mean that you never engage in those things, and we're not throwing any shade to people who do. So, checking your internal state before engaging. And then, if setting those invisible boundaries with yourself, you're not necessarily telling them, I only have 2 minutes. Maybe you might, but maybe you just say to yourself, okay, I can do this for about 2 minutes, and then I'm going to have to find a graceful exit. So, because you're not feeling like you can go deep today, you're maxed out. And then physically or emotionally stepping out of that situation, you know, saying something like, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I have a thing," or need to use the restroom, or whatever it is that you can find to gracefully exit. And then if you do realize that you've been hooked, taking a pause and taking a grounding breath, it's like, okay, how do I get out of this? Um, Refocus yourself on the situation and what's happening, and um, figuring out ways to gently disengage, if that makes sense. Now, in the process, this is a difficult one because in the process, you're really wanting to validate, right? Because you're nice and you're human.
Hmm. And you also know that if you do validate, that that balloon will come down, right?
Yes.
That the amount of like negative energy will shrink
Yeah.
if they feel seen.
Yeah. So validating, and and then also realizing, okay, I need to unhook from this because I don't have the resources today. And particularly since our brains are wired to mirror emotion. And so we know that engaging with this person is going to bring us to a place that is not healthy for us, because we're not, like, we're doing okay, but we need to not be drawn into the negative. That's the time which you gently disengage and find a graceful exit, because we need to protect our own emotional resources so that we can continue to do what we want and need to do for ourselves, for our students, for our families, for our,
Our
jobs.
jobs, yeah. We have
Yeah.
lots of responsibilities, and it is good to take that perspective too. Like, this is one part, not the whole thing.
Yeah.
I need to have the bandwidth for all of it.
Yeah. And you see why complaining is so nuanced, and supporting people who are complaining is so nuanced. Um, it's a balance of taking care of yourself and also being a supportive coworker, friend, family member. Like, it's complicated. Human skills, human relationships, they're complicated. That's why we need to focus on and develop those inner and outer
Skills,
skills.
100%. They are so important, and they're going to come up with every single career you can think of, with every single relationship you can think of, and even just when you're by yourself. So
Yes.
it
Wherever you go, there you are.
wherever you go, there you are.
All right. So, do we want to think about some accountability for
Yeah,
this?
I want to just say to everybody that we know life is hard, and that every complaint has some mud and some pain and some fear and some frustration. And it also can hold a seed. And we're not saying that every single bit of a complaint is going to turn into that lotus. But we can go into this hyper learning. We can feel proud of ourselves for stepping out of that too. So we can have like this double edge benefit from stepping out of the mud. We can feel better in our choice, but we can also feel better with our own growth.
Yeah.
So support each other and help each other grow. All right. So what's going to be your accountability?
I'm going to say, I don't know. Let me think about this for a second. I'm going to say that I am going to check in and ask what they need. That has not historically been my strength. I love fix it mode. I love analyze and fix. And I think in my professional life, I'm better at sort of assessing and asking what people need in the moment. In my personal life, I think with friends, family, I could probably do better at asking what they need before jumping into fix it mode. I think that's going to be my accountability this week.
Great. It's a good week to practice.
Yeah, it sure is. What about you?
Um, I think that I am going to remind myself that I am not responsible for preventing discomfort of others.
Yes.
Because I know that I can do some things sometimes, but it's not, I think sometimes they have to have the agency to do it themselves, or it's not really my place to do it. So I guess I ask, is it my place to do this? Is this actually helping them?
Yeah. Is it healthy to step in, or does it better serve them to stay in the listening, supporting
Right.
role?
Yeah. But prevention is not my responsibility. So if I'm going to take action, is that appropriate?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, thank you so much for learning together with us and talking about complaining. I know it's not the most pleasant of topics. However, it is frequently found in our world, whether you're turning on the TV or seeing somebody stuck in the mud. Hopefully, you are equipped with some tools that you can use to not get stuck and to
Yeah.
spiral out of it. Um, Remember, you're not alone, and we are all figuring this out together, one messy step at a time.
I love that. One messy step at a time. It's definitely a difficult one to explore, but it's worth exploration because I think in exploring it, um, you have the potential to decrease the amount that you want to complain about and the amount of triggers that you have. So, this week we encourage you to choose the smallest step forward and just keep going. Find something small that you can do around the topic of complaining, whether it's taking a look at your triggers or asking somebody what they need from you in the middle of the complaining. Give yourself grace. You don't need to do everything all at once or anything perfectly. Small steps add up and equal progress.
We're proud of you for showing up with us today. Keep learning, and we'll see you next time.
If you like what you hear, click the subscribe button. Feel free to leave a comment or question. We'd love to hear from you. See you next time.
Bye.